Hello aspirants and welcome again to Legacy IAS Academy. In this session, we'll be taking up October 2024's current affairs. So of course, these sessions are tailor-made to cover your entire year's current affairs. Now the same has already started from 21st February 2025. So in this, each and every subject will be covered. Current affairs with respect to that will be covered for the entire year. Of course, all the important topics throughout the year will be covered. It is very important for your upcoming prelims. Every subject and brief notes shall also be provided in that. So I hope you are watching each and every lecture seriously, making notes and subsequently revising it as well. So let's get started with respect to October 2024 current affairs of Indian economy. So the things that we'll be covering is the Nobel Prize in Economics. We'll see in what it was given and know a bit more about the Nobel Prizes. Be Ready Index, we'll see which index it has replaced. Global Innovation Index, then very important national mission on edible oils and oil seeds. As you know, India imports a huge amount of oil because we don't produce enough. So there are missions going on. We'll look at this mission as well. Then there is the annual survey of industries. This annual survey of industry, of course, done every year. We'll see the industries that are incorporated. One important thing to remember is the same annual survey of industry comes up with the survey of unorganized sector as well every 5 years. Very important to remember. Then we'll see input tax credit, India's foreign exchange reserve. It has crossed $700 billion, making India the fourth highest foreign exchange country with the foreign exchange who has crossed $700 billion mark. Then we'll look at UPI 123 and UPI Lite. What are these? What is its importance and what is the difference? Then Global Family Farming Forum. What is this all about? What is Global Family Farming? And then finally, commitment to reduce inequality index. So what is this? Commitment to reduce inequality. There is an index for that as well. We'll see what this index is all about. So having said that, one important thing before we proceed is the impact program that is going on. You can also enroll for the same. Now what is important in this is, of course, after prelims the time that is left is quite less for preparing, right? So you need some mentorship and guidance. This program will not just cover comprehensive answer writing practice and provide the content as well. At the same time, the most important thing about this is the personal mentorship which will be present under that. Now this will cover the entire GS plus essay in 50 plus hours, having over 34 sessions. So this is going to keep you mains ready immediately after prelims. Now let's dig deep into October 2024 current affairs for Indian economy, starting with Nobel Prize. So the Nobel Prize for 2024 in economics has been awarded to three people are there, three mentions are there: Daron Acemoglu, Simon Johnson and James A. Robinson. Now for what it has been provided becomes important. It has been provided on the research on how institutions are formed and their impact in prosperity. So what institutions we are talking about? Economic institutions, political institutions, any institution that are formed. So we'll see how these institutions are formed. We'll not see that, but in their research they have talked about how these institutions are formed and what is their particular impact on the prosperity of a nation or of a region. Now, to know a bit more on this particular research, it demonstrated the importance of societal institutions for countries' prosperity, meaning that if these societal institutions are not present, prosperity of the country will be hampered. In presence of these institutions, the prosperity will prevail. That is what is mentioned. However, one important let's say outcome or result, or let's say the conclusion that they have come out with the help of this research is that democracy in various colonies. Colonies means the countries which were colonized by the Europeans in general, and with respect to India, the Britishers in particular. So India was also a colony. So when they talk about democracy which developed in colonies, including India, what has happened is the democracy here developed out of a particular reason is what they are saying. Now democracy is also an institution and a political institution, but it did not develop due to civil rebellion, it did not develop due to majority of the populace, but it developed because of a reason whose answer lies in the colonial period. So it says that democracy developed in various colonies. Example can be of course India. As why it developed, it answers the question as to why it has developed, as there was a threat of revolution by the masses. There was a threat of revolution by the masses, right? Which could not be tackled through the promise of social reforms. What does this mean? This means that, for example, the colonies which were colonized after they won the independence, the colonies when they won the independence, there was a threat of mass rebellion which was possible, and giving reforms to the masses would not have solved the problem. So because to address that threat, democracy developed in those nations is what this study talks about. Very important to remember that. Now if we look at the Nobel Prize in general, it is of course an international award administered by the Nobel Foundation in Stockholm, Sweden. It is based on the will of Mr. Alfred Nobel, which was in 1995. Now there are certain categories for which the Nobel Prize is given. So let us see the category and see who awards the prizes. So different bodies are awarding it. Let us see that. So for physics, chemistry and economics, it is awarded by the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. For literature, it is Swedish Academy, Stockholm, Sweden. Medicine, Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institute, Stockholm, Sweden. And so till now you have seen Sweden. Now here for peace, it is the Norwegian Nobel Committee. Now what do these people receive? They receive a Nobel diploma, a unique work of art. It's a Nobel diploma is what they receive, is very important. A Nobel medal plus some amount of cash, that is 10 million Swedish kronor is what they receive. That's a Swedish currency is what they receive. So three things is what they receive. So that was about the Nobel Prize. So we looked at the economics as well as we talked a bit about the Nobel Prize itself. Moving ahead, the Be Ready Index. Now this Be Ready Index, that is Business Ready Index, has been launched by World Bank, and it is the first ever edition that has been launched, which makes it easy. Now why it has been launched? It is basically launched to replace the ease of doing business report which was there and ease of doing business index which was there previously. This was of course also brought out by World Bank. What happened is there were issues of collusion, there were issues of false reporting, etc. with respect to, so there were ethical concerns with respect to the ranking under ease of doing business. So what the World Bank has done, the World Bank has come up with a different index that is known as Be Ready Index, which is Business Ready Index, again brought out by World Bank. Now going forward in the coming 3 years, let's say by 2026, so maybe in the next 2 years you can say by 2026, it proposes to cover around 180 countries, but presently only 50 economies are covered, and presently it excluding India, 50 economies are covered, and in the future it says that around 180 economies will be covered by it. Of course this is a new index, new methodology, new data. It will take time to collate the data of the entire world. That is why this time. Now, as I said, it replaces the World Bank's ease of doing business ranking. I hope that's clear. Moving on, let us see what all are included in business readiness. So, business readiness, like ease of doing business, some things will be similar, right? So, in ease of doing business, what was the thing? Entry in a business and exit in a business. That is there in that, plus other things is what we will see. Business entry means how easy it is to enter a particular business. business location, availability of location, utility services, labor, utility services like electricity, etc., labor, financial services, international trade, taxation, because taxation laws can also be complex, which can be a challenge for a business. How easy are they? How ready are they to start a business? This is important. Taxation, dispute resolution, of course, dispute can come up. So do you have an ombudsman? Do you have a tribunal or directly court? Market competition and business insolvency. Business insolvency is basically talking about the exit strategy of the business, and this was the entry of the business, and this is everything that is in between in the business process. Now, moving ahead, the pillars, it also mentions the pillars of business ready index. So there are three pillars. One is regulatory framework. So remember the three pillars and broadly know what they are. First is regulatory framework, the rules and regulation of a particular country, how easy or difficult they are. The public services, utility services, transportation, logistics, electricity, so on and so forth, and operational efficiency are the three pillars of business ready index or B index. Going forward, next is another index, which is the Global Innovation Index 2024, the GII 2024. So it has been released by World Intellectual Property Organization, that is WIPO. It has not launched it or not introduced it alone. Along with it, Cornell University and INSEAD business schools. So some of the schools, some of the universities also take part in certain indices. Some of them come single-handedly alone on their own, or some of them along with the organization. So remember that WIPO along with Cornell University and INSEAD business school has come up with the Global Innovation Index. Now India has slightly done better than it had previously in this particular year's global index. We'll see that. Remember the theme also. Theme is very important for your prelims. The theme for this year's Global Innovation Index is unlocking the promise of social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship. Now, what are the criteria for measurement of innovation? Important for your prelims again. UPSC can generally give you, consider the following criteria, which of them are part of Global Innovation Index. They can simply ask. So you should know that. One is institutions, human capital and research, infrastructure, credit investment, linkages. Credit investment is how much amount of investment is going into innovation, creation, absorption and diffusion of knowledge, and creative outputs. So these are the broad parameters you should know. Now how they measure, you don't have to go into the complexity of there, but you should know what is the criteria for measuring the same. Alright, now comes the ranking part. So which countries are top ranked? Switzerland is top ranked, followed by Sweden, US and Singapore. So US, a big nation, is at third rank. Switzerland is ranked 1. India, which is at 39th rank among 133 countries, has improved slightly, improving ranking by 1. So previously it was at 40th in 2023. Now it is 39th with a score of almost 39. So ranking and score is almost the same, but yes, 38.3. You don't have to exactly know, just remember almost the same. Ranking is 39th. Now, even though the rank is 39, there are certain achievements for India in it. What are these achievements? India holds the top rank in both lower middle income economies as well as Central and Southern Asian region. Lower middle income and Central and Southern Asian for what? For few of the parameters being knowledge and technology outputs, creative outputs, institution and business sophistication. For these criteria, India is topping. And not just that, there are few cities of India in top 100, that is Bangalore, Delhi, Chennai and Mumbai are among the top 100 S&T, science and tech clusters. So among top 100 clusters, Bengaluru, Delhi, Chennai and Mumbai are there. We are not talking about, see, country is 133, but the clusters you will talk about, there will be thousands of clusters because each country will have various, not thousand, but lot of hundreds of clusters will be there because each country will have so many cities incorporated. So among them, India has 4 cities, Bengaluru, Delhi, Chennai as well as Mumbai in top 100 clusters for SNT, that is Science and Technology. Moving ahead, going on to National Mission on Edible Oils. National Mission on Edible Oils, that is NMEO, oil seeds. National Mission on Edible Oils, oil seeds. Now, the importance is that India still imports over 40% of its palm oil requirements, its oil requirement. That is why this particular mission becomes very important. So the government has recently approved the National Mission on Edible Oil seeds for 7-year period, that is the fiscal 24-25 to 30-31. So this has been approved. Now what all will be covered under this is the different targets will be set under this for higher production, increase in production of the oil seeds so that more oil can be produced. So remember, important thing to remember is it has been approved for 7 years from 24-25 to 30-31. Now moving ahead to annual survey of industries. This annual survey of course is done annually. It is released by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, MOSPI. So it has released for the financial year 2022-23. Right, so it comes up with a delay. Of course, it is very evident that we are studying 2024 current affairs and we are talking about annual survey of industries 2022-23. So there is a huge amount of delay present over here. Now, what does it do? It provides the dynamics, the changes, right? How much is the production? What is the change in production? Is there an increase? Is there a decrease? All those insights with respect to growth, structure of manufacturing industries in terms of key economic indicators. How much is the growth? What is the increase? What is the CAGR, compounded annual growth rate, etc., of different industries in different sectors in the secondary sector. Now, it is conducted by Collection of Statistics Act 2008. This is important. So it is basically conducted, or it is governed, it comes under the Collection of Statistics Act 2008 for the entire country except for Jammu and Kashmir. For Jammu and Kashmir, it is conducted under Jammu and Kashmir Collection of Statistics Act 2010. So this is one important thing that needs to be remembered. Now, the industries that are covered are 4 different types. We'll mention factories registered under section 2M1 and 2 of Factories Act 1948. Then you have BD and cigarette manufacturing establishments under the BD and Cigar Workers Conditions of Employment Act 1966. So these two, plus there are 2 more types we'll talk about. Electricity undertakings not registered with Central Electricity Authority, CEA. All the electricity undertakings that are not registered with it, and units with 100 or more employees registered in the Business Register of Establishment maintained by the different states. So these are the kinds of industries that are included in annual survey of industries. One important thing is the annual survey of industry comes for the organized sector. Now MOSPI also comes up with the survey for the unorganized sector, but that is not annually, that is once every 5 years. Next one is the input tax credit. Next is the input tax credit. What is it all about? Recently, or at that time in October 2024, recently with respect to October 2024, Supreme Court laid down twin tests. Twin tests, what tests are these? Functionality test and essentiality test. For what? For input tax credit eligibility in construction. So what is this all about? See, you may have a building. Now that building may be given on rent. So now it can be considered as a part of a business, and that particular building or flat can be considered as a plant where production generation happens, which leads to income. That is what the Supreme Court is talking about here. It is saying that if a building is essential for supplying services like renting or leasing as per Schedule 2, Clauses 2 and 5 of the CGST Act, it may be considered as a plant. Then you can consider it as a plant. Then functionality test determines whether a building qualifies as a plant or not. So what is the function of that building? Is that building acting as a plant which provides the basic important services or not? If yes, then it can be considered as a plant. When you consider that as a plant, then input tax credit can be, the benefits can be availed. Now, what is input tax credit? So input tax credit, what happens is, during a business, you might already have paid taxes. Now, so much of taxes that the final calculation of taxes is less, so you can produce the GST certificate of the previously paid taxes to get a rebate of those taxes. That is what input tax credit is, so as to avoid the cascading effect of tax on taxes. I hope that's clear. So again, what is it? Mechanism to avoid the cascading effect of taxes, that is taxing on the tax. So a registered taxable person under GST, any person who is registered under GST, you can have your own firm which has a GST number. So you are a person registered under GST who is paying tax due in the course of furtherance of a business, can claim and avail ITC credit in electronic ledger. I'll explain what this is. What happens is, let's say you have, there are raw materials that is required. So there is raw material that is required. Now in this raw material, let's say you require X, now then you require Y, then you require Z. When you are buying these raw materials, you are already paying the taxes, and after the raw material, you use the raw material and you create the final goods, right? Now there is a tax on the final good as well. Now this, let's say the value of this is 100, the value of this is 100, the value of this is 100, the final goods value is 1000. Now let's say for example, 18% of tax is applicable here, 18% here, 18% here. So how much tax have you paid? You have paid tax of 54 rupees. Now on the final good, the finished good, let's say the tax again is of 18% only, so you have to pay 180 rupees, right? Now this indirect tax is transferred onto the consumer, the final buyer, but this 180 rupees you don't have to pay completely, because 54 rupees is already paid. So you have to pay 180 minus 54, that is 126 rupees will be required to be paid. Input tax credit you will be getting. That is a credit for the tax you have already paid. I hope this concept is clear. Next is, India's foreign exchange reserve crosses $700 billion. Now, the importance of this is, it makes India the 4th country in the world to have over $700 billion in foreign exchange reserve. Number 1 is China, number 2 is Japan, number 3 is Switzerland. Even Japan is quite a small country, Switzerland is also a small country. Such small countries having such high foreign exchange reserve. Why I pointed out Switzerland is because in your intellectual property, World Intellectual Property Organization, it placed it first in the Global Innovation Index. So in innovation also it's first. In foreign exchange, it is having over $700 billion worth of foreign exchange. Now India has become the 4th country to do so, as it has crossed $700 billion mark. Now what are foreign currency assets? Now it is basically valued in currencies other than the country's own currency. So all other currency other than its own currency will be a part of foreign exchange. All the gold reserves will also be a part of foreign exchange, of course. Then apart from this, you have 2 more things. One is special drawing rights. What is a special drawing rights? It is the reserve assets provided by the IMF, that is International Monetary Fund. Okay? It is based on a value of mix of the special drawing rights. The special drawing rights SDR, its value is dependent on 5 currency, that is the dollar, euro, Chinese renminbi, Japanese yen and the British pound. So it has a mix of all these 5 currencies of different weightages combining together to give one SDR whose currency value is dependent on these 5 currency and its weightages. Now, So this is also a part of a country's foreign exchange reserve. Along with this, the reserve tranche position is also a part of country's foreign exchange reserve. What is reserve tranche? It is equal to the members' quota minus the IMF holding of the members' currency in that account. So whatever quota of reserve it has minus IMF members holding in the members' currency in that particular account. So that is the reserve tranche. So these four things constitute the foreign exchange reserve. The most important thing to know is majority of our foreign exchange reserve is in dollars, and the government in India is trying to diversify its foreign exchange basket by having different currencies in the basket, by having more of gold, and subsequently reducing the dollars. Moving ahead, UPI 123 and UPI Lite. You might have come across Facebook Lite. What is Facebook Lite? Facebook Lite is again Facebook app only, but which can work with less amount of internet consumption on not big smartphones. Small smartphones can also handle that. The memory required for it to work is lesser. The amount of internet data required is lesser, so it can be easily operable even with internet fluctuations or low speed of internet, so as to provide access in remote areas as well, which helps in internet inclusion with respect to Facebook. But if the same case is with respect to UPI, so this is leading to financial inclusion, because in places where internet connection is fluctuating, it is slow, it is low, in the remote areas also you can have UPI penetration. So that is why UPI Lite and UPI 123 concept is there. But in this UPI 123 and UPI Lite, the limits were lower as compared to the usual UPI that you have. So what has happened to encourage wider adoption, means more and more people should start using this. What has happened is RBI has enhanced the transaction limits for UPI 123 and UPI Lite. Both the transaction limit for both of them has been enhanced. Now what is UPI 123? Started in March 2022. Not that important, but you should know very recently started to enable feature phone users to use UPI. So UPI 123 is for the featured phone users. Remember that probably some of you may remember that previously what used to happen is you want to set a caller tune. So you message something *121# or something, then you get the list which caller tune you want to send. Bollywood, Hollywood, albums, this, that, all the so on and so forth. So press 1, 2, 3, then you press 2, then it gives the next part of selection. In the same manner, through UPI 123, even using a featured phone, you can do the transactions. Of course, it is available in 12 languages. Okay? And RBI has enhanced the per transaction limit from 5,000 to 10,000. So per transaction. Now in usual UPI, you might have a daily UPI limit of 1 lakh, but you can do the entire 1 lakh in one single transaction. That is not the case with UPI 123. In UPI 123, just 5,000 per transaction. Now that limit has increased to 10,000 per transaction. Now, what is UPI Lite? It allows users to make low value transactions without entering a UPI pin. Now RBI has enhanced per transaction limit to 1,000 from 500 and overall wallet limit to 5,000 from 200. So you should know the rough amount of range over here. It's in mere thousands. That is what you should know. Moving ahead with Global Family Farming Forum. So Global Family Farming Forum has been launched. It has been launched at Food and Agriculture Organization's World Food Forum. Food and Agriculture Organization's World Food Forum. This FAO is a United Nations special organization. United Nations specialized organization. United Nations has 15 specialized organization. Food and Agriculture Organization is one such particular organization. You should know what are the other 14 as well. Now this particular forum is going to celebrate the essential role of family farmers in building sustainable farming or sustainable agri-food system and tackling the impact of climate change. So what is this global family farming? Let's understand that first. What is global or what is family farming? Now in family farming, what happens is the family is going to carry on the farming utilizing its own labor, the labor of its own women, men, all the people involved in their family, utilizing their own labor, they are going to farm. That is what family farming is. Means of organizing agriculture, and of course related activities are also included, that is forestry, fisheries, pastoral and aquaculture production, that is managed and operated by a family, predominantly reliant on the family labor of both women and men. Predominantly, that means this is very important for prelims questioning. Predominantly, are they saying 100%? No, they are saying predominantly. Predominantly means majorly. Majorly it is the family labor that will be involved is what global farming is, and this will be more sustainable because small farms, so that family itself are able to cultivate it. Generally that is the case. You utilize the the organic fertilizers, this, that. It is not large scale using huge amount of chemical fertilizer. It is not. So this kind of farming is more sustainable. So this is what it is talking about. I hope this is absolutely clear. That's what exactly it is. Building sustainable agri-food system and tackling the impacts of climate change. It is going to help us in achieving that goal. Now, next is another index, Commitment to Reduce Inequality Index. CRI index. It is, it is released by Oxfam and Development Finance International, DFI. Oxfam is the important organization here. It deals, or it does a lot of researches and comes out with a lot of things related to inequality. So here also, when you talk about commitment to reduce inequality, it is Oxfam and Development Finance International that has come up with it. The CRI assessed commitment of 164 countries and regions to reduce inequality. Now it is related to SDG 10, which talks about fighting inequality, so it is in line with that particular goal. Now, what are the things that is being assessed becomes very important. 3 parameters are taken into account. Public services spending, how much is spent on public services. Progressive taxation, very important. Progressive taxation means what? The person who is earning more money is going to bear more burden of tax, that is progressive taxation. Opposite is regressive taxation, wherein a person earning less amount of money bears more amount of taxation, that is regressive taxation. So progressive taxation, it will see its the share of progressive taxation in the entire taxation system, and labor rights and wages. So all these things, if done properly, of course is going to reduce inequality. The higher these things are, the better a country is showcasing itself to be fighting inequality, is what we will understand. Now, this is again related to CRI only. This is not Be Ready Index. This is again Commitment to Reduce Inequality Index. So in this, when you look at the top performers, see, generally when you talk about inequality, when you talk about let's say, even if you saw the innovation, but not just the innovation, if you talk about reduction in inequality, if you talk about less amount of gender discrimination or more gender equality, you will find that the Nordic countries, Norway, this, that, and all those countries are doing exceptionally well. And the same is the case over here. So what are the top performers here? If you look at the top performers, you find Norway over there. Again, the type of country which I talked about. Of course, other country is Canada from America and Australia itself. But again, the topper is the countries one of the countries I was talking about. Now, the worst performer, African countries are here. South Sudan and Nigeria. The reasons are what? South Sudan is facing a lot of issues, political instability, civil rebellion, civil revolution, all those things. Everything is happening at once, along with poverty, low per capita income, etc. It is there. So these are the worst performers. When it comes to India, India's rank is 127th. Now it is higher than other South Asian countries. Higher means the rank, higher rank means worse condition. So our rank is more than the rank of other South Asian countries such as Nepal and Sri Lanka. These things are important to remember because UPSC can simply ask saying that, one of the statements saying that India's rank in CRI is worse than any of the SAARC countries or is better than all of the SAARC countries, so on and so forth. These kind of statements come, as a result of which you should be knowing the comparative analysis of India with respect to neighboring countries, South Asian countries, similar kind of countries in the Asian subcontinent, in Asia, so on and so forth, right? So these are the important current affairs for the month of October 2024. Revise them. Whatever I have emphasized more, ensure that you have revised and remember these things more. These things are definitely going to give you a lot of answers to UPSC questions in the upcoming prelims. Thank you.